What's up, guys? This is Weiss Schwarz Pauper here, and today I will be bringing the first budget video, or budget deck build of the channel. This is Mono Yellow Angel Beats Music. So let's just hop right into it. This is Yui's Sex Appeal. I run 4 of it for the Zero build. It's a 3/5 beater, and then on attack declaration, reveal top card. If it's a climax, this card loses 3k. It's a very solid beater. The effect happens very rarely, so I like it as a 4 of. And it's a music character, so it just fits that strategy a little bit. Next up, diving right into the main strategy. This is 3k on your turn. It's a music character, and then when it dies, you top check. And if the top check was a music character, it goes to memory. This helps with the deck thinning of the deck, because the main strategy is send as many cards as you can, as quickly as you can, into the memory, which thins your deck extremely and allows you to hopefully block a lot of damage so that you get a huge amount of level advantage over your opponent. So 4 of that. Next up, I run 4 copies of this Sekine Loves Pranks. This is like Unison Raid Lucy in Fairy Tail. It's a pay 1, ditch 1, search 1 card that also goes to memory. So very solid. It's the most important card in your level 0 build. Next up, I run 2 copies of this Charisma Vocalist Iwasawa. It's a very solid tech of mine. I like it. It's on play, pay 1, bounce a level 0, and then at end of the turn, this card goes to memory. Very solid. I like it at 2. Next up, I run 2 copies of this Brainstorm. It is a pay 1, search, ditch Brainstorm for music characters. Very solid, and it's really the only Brainstorm that works with this strategy. And then the last one, obviously I'm running 18 zeros. 18 is a bit high, but I feel in this build that the 18 zeros are more important than certain cards at other levels, so I like 18. It's working for me right now. This is always together Sekine and Eerie. It bonds for your level 2 change card, which is very, very important late game, and you want to have it. So this just makes that more consistent. Alright, we move on to 1. This is actually a very, very low 1 count in this build, which is odd for most decks, and especially for Angel Beats. But the ones in the set most of them don't really fit the strategy of the deck, and I found that with this deck, you want to fit the strategy and not necessarily fit the meta or what the meta defines as how to build a deck. So for this, I run 4 copies of this Guitar Performer Iwasawa. Obviously, I'm running 2 proxies. I don't know where my other 2 copies went, but I needed to get this build up, so sadly, I was not able to procure 2 copies in the amount of time I needed. So, there's that. The Guitar Performer Iwasawa is a pay 2 on reverse, send it to memory, and then I get to search a death character. So there's 1 non-music character in this build. You can search that with this, as well as all the music characters, because every card in this deck that's a character is death. So very solid. Run it as a 4 of. And now the last card of the level 1 build, I run it as a 3 of. This is the 1135 event. Very big event. Almost every Angel Beats deck runs this card. It's very solid. You should run 2 to 3 of it in basically every Angel Beats build. I like it. It's not necessarily driven around the strategy, but this is one of the few cards that I run purely because it's good and not because it fits the strategy. So there we go. And that's the level 1 build. That's 7 level 1s. Next, on to the level 2s and the last 2 backups. That puts it at 5 backups. I run 2 copies of this 2/1, 2/5 pay 2 free fresh backup. It's very solid. You're not going to be playing it on the board ever, really. This is a ditch card early game or even late game sometimes if you don't need it. and it refreshes for you. Plus, it's a 2-5 backup, which isn't bad at all. And you don't need the red to use the backup itself. So it's very solid. I like it as a 2-of. It can really save you. Next up is the level assist. 2-1 level assist. I needed a card that would make my creatures stronger more consistently, because I found that I wouldn't always have my backups in my hand, and this card really helps with making beating over my creatures a little harder. Plus, also on top of that, it has a tap 1, give 500 to one creature, so that's a perk. It can really help in certain situations. Very solid. It fits the bill for what I need it to be, and it's a music character once again, so I run 3. Next up is the change that you heard about earlier. I run 4 copies of it. Sadly, this is the only other proxy in the deck. I am running 4 of it, but I only have 3. So what this one does is when you play its climax, it changes into a level 3 healer by sending itself to the memory. It's very, very solid, and it thins your deck even more, and it brings out a solid card. The card it combos with is Memories of Gldemo. This is a 2K1 event, or 2K1 climax. I like 2K1s. If you have the right combo, you should definitely consider running 2K1s because they're very, very good. And then that's the level 2 build. So next up, the level 3s. I run 4 copies of the card that this cool beauty changes into, which is Realizing a Dream Yui. This card is a 10-5 when you have 2 or more characters in the memory, which you're going to have when you bring this card out, unless you have terrible luck. It heals on play, including when it's changed, which is awesome, so it holds you at level 2. And then on top of that, if you have this card on the board, and you attack with this card, all cards, including itself, gain 3-5, which is enormous. It's very solid, makes your cards really big, really hard to get over. It's just absolutely devastating for your opponent, and it's a healer. It's everything good about this game all wrapped into one card. So there's those. And moving on to the rest of the level 3 game. I run 2 copies of this Passionate Girl Yui. It can't be chosen by opponent's card effects, so like it's not susceptible to like bounce effects and stuff like that. And then when it's placed on the stage, you get to give 2 characters, up to 2 characters, 1K and a soul. So it's kind of a game ender. It adds more soul, does more damage. It can also help with blocking climaxes so that you can take on your opponent in the next turn and such. And it makes the creatures a little bigger, so it's very solid. And then also, when it declares an attack, you can pay 1, ditch 1, and then bounce a card and give this card a K. So it makes it bigger, it bounces cards. It's just a very good tech 2-of. And then next up, I run 2 copies of this Little Braver Yui. It becomes level 2 in hand if you have 6 or more climaxes in the grave, so comes out at level 2, which is awesome. Gains 500 for each other music character, so it can be an 11-5. And on top of that, on the turn it's played, it has shot. So if its damage is canceled, you get to deal 1 damage. So either it's going to deal a guaranteed damage, or it's going to block 2 climaxes. Either way, in that situation, you win, because even if you block twice, you just block 2 climaxes with 1 of your attacks. The likelihood that your other attacks aren't going to hit have become a lot slimmer. So, there's that, as a 2-of. Very solid. Obviously, I don't run a second climax combo, so what I run instead is 4 copies of a dead climax. This is A Girl's Ultimate Happiness. It's a win trigger. I know a lot of people don't like to run win triggers, but I feel in this upcoming meta, win triggers are going to be a lot more susceptible. Bounces have always been great. They're good for against decks that run a lot of like clock shooters and stuff, because it it makes their clock shooting more expensive because then they have to bring out the card for its cost again and such and such. They're not necessarily great against healers, but every deck runs healers. For example, Kantai's running, I believe, 8 clock shooters right now or something ridiculous like that, none of which heal. So this card is very good against decks like that. It's good against that new 3/2 Demon Homura in Modica. Some people are running that. It's very devastating against that because it gets rid of basically 2 level 3s when you bounce that Demon Homura. So I like this card. It's very solid, and I run it as a 4-of. Well, guys, that's the deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it. It's about $100 to $150, so very budget for Weiss. So there you have it. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. This was Weiss Schwarz Pauper signing out.